Alright, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. What are we doing? Hey, it's working! We're on Twitch. Yay! Hello everyone, I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. And we made it over here to the twitch.tv/Leonard French address. I see all of you. I need to get the browser source thing loaded here. There we go. Alright, now you're on the screen. Yay! And that's not even the right scene, so now I've got to do it again. We'll get this right, I swear. There's always something. Oh, thank you for your sub, Benismati, Mani. Really appreciated. Film noise? Oh yeah, the film grain. Thank you. I thought you meant audio noise. No audio noise, please. There might be a little bit. I have found that there's like about a 90 hertz hum coming from my computer, so we filter that out when we do productions, recorded productions, but I don't have like a notch filter programmed into this computer yet, so I'll figure that out. But thank you for joining me. I want to go back, says Corbin. Get through one show, just one show, and we'll see how we like it. Oh, also, Captain, I just realized that I don't have everybody set up as moderators. We've set a different set of moderators for Twitch, so make sure that any of our regular mods who are not set up are available to do that.
Yeah, so, I'll organize that.
Isn't 4,000 kilobits quite too much for a talk show? Maybe a bit. I like my quality though. It is a different camera than I normally use for Twitch live streaming. I used to been using a Logitech QuickCam, and then for the productions and things, I was using a Canon 7D Mark II. But anyone who's dealt with DSLRs knows that they have a 30-minute timeout on them, and I was hitting that timeout here and there, and the camera would just go out. So we separated the camera and the audio source, so at least the audio wouldn't go out. The camera still went out occasionally. And then I was hanging out with a friend of mine who does actual production for NBC in New York, and we just got to talking, and I found a cinema camera that I liked from Blackmagic, the Blackmagic Cinema 2.5K. And I found one used, and I picked it up. And then you guys, I don't know if you know, but you guys bought a brand new lens for it for me because we wanted to have a little bit wider of a shot. And so we do have a nicer, wider shot now, anywhere from as far in as this, all the way out to about here. And you can see why I would frame it around about here or so. Oh, thank you for the bits, Amperage. Appreciate it. And the new lens also allows us to do some aperture and focus control so that you can actually see the panel while I'm doing some low light stuff. Don't know if I'm as yellow on the screen as it looks on Twitch. I'm a little bit less yellow on my other screen, so that might just be my poor color management here. Let me see what I can do about that real quick.
Did that just make a sound for you?
No, I have sounds turned off. Where would the sounds come from? Which tab?
I wouldn't turn them on. It's going to be very distracting.
Well, I want to hear. Oh, at least I can turn it off.
Okay.
I got to fix the color correction anyway, because I'm a little bit too saturated. Like a little way too saturated.
Sifil, we can accept bits and we can accept tips. There is a panel below.
It's there we go. Now I can actually hear it, though. Thank you, Killer Nat. How many lawyer dogs do we get? Actually, about that, I didn't think that far ahead. I have video of the dogs, and we're going to have to do that one live. If you want to bear with me for just a moment, since we're doing the bearing with me right now, I will actually see if I have that available. It's going to pause for, oh shit, everything's going to go down for a second because I just loaded a USB drive. I don't know if you guys... Okay, it's still... You might be able to hear me. Nope, the stream stopped.
What happened?
This is what happens when Windows needs to load something from one of my USB drives. It takes basically everything down while it waits for the USB drive to spin up. So, sorry about that. But you wanted dogs, so here are some dogs. Let's find this.
Actually, the whole stream is lagging at the moment. Okay, gotcha.
Is it caught back up?
I believe it has, yes.
And am I still synced?
Yes.
I can take it down and back up if we're not synced anymore.
Yes, let's not spin up any more hard drives today.
That's not the dog roll we're looking for. All right, here. Yeah, this will work. This will work. Let's do this way. It's thinking about it. Yep, here we go. That should work.
Whoa. Ooh.
So here's some footage. There we go. And then there is actually a dog video scene. There we go. So here we did some wide angle shots with the new lens. And then you can see that we're going to be doing more with this. TY Fuzzle subscribed. Thank you very much. This is a really neat lens. It's got some really good potential. I really haven't learned how to use it yet. But it gets this nice wide angle shot. So thank you very much for that. We're going to be doing the rest of our productions with this. It's a nice fast lens, meaning it captures a lot of light, meaning I can do this sort of low light production, which is just how I feel this morning. I don't feel like being in front of 14,000 lumens of light. We'll adjust for that, and some of these productions will be done with everything. But it's Sunday morning here. Twix Ops and Stella Paul, thank you for your subscriptions. And Sinkson. Oh, geez, there's a lot of you. That is my mom. That is my mom. She loves the dogs, too. Don't worry about donating if you can't donate. It's all good. So, I think I've said thank you for the lens a bunch of times. And thank you for joining us on Twitch. That's also a really great thing. We have 497 viewers. That's amazing. So that's about, I don't know, that's about a quarter to half of the viewership we typically get on YouTube. But that's also, it changes from time to time, like seasonally kind of. Like I did not expect to have the typical viewership today on YouTube anyway. So I'm not complaining about having 500 of you. Actually, this is pretty awesome. Thank you for the sub, Grumpets. And thank you for the bits, Chibi Annie. Aren't you supposed to be doing this, Brandon?
Yes, I was just going to stop you and ask you if you want to stop in between stories and I'll read them off for you.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to stop acknowledging them live. I'm going to keep the sounds on because I kind of like it. Or do we think that the sounds will get distracting from any VODs I try to do?
Yes.
Maybe I have to turn off the sounds for the VODs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to mute the tabs for the VODs, and you're going to catch the subs and the bits and stuff.
Yes, sir.
Surreal is real. It is a Tokina. It is a Tokina. Oh wait, yeah. Where's the focus? It's a Tokina lens. It is an 11 to 16 millimeter Tokina lens. Oh, we have someone. Hang on. Let me see if I can do this. Would you like to say hi?
Oh.
Would you like to say hi? I don't have. Oh, you. When did you get so heavy? Oh my God, you're big. Oh my God, you're big. You got bigger. When did you get bigger? Or did I get weaker? This is Nico. For anyone who's joining us for the first time, this is my golden. He's 2. He's a wonderful boy. And he's one of our 2 official mascots. He's a good boy. And that's his happy little grunt. He makes a happy little grunt when he's happy. All right. How are you?
Oh, and to everybody, we do have our own link shortener domain now, as you can see. So that's pretty cool.
So good morning to Nico.
Sorry.
He's a very you're fine. He's a very calm. He's the most calm dog I've ever had. Ilsa is definitely a more less calm dog. Let's put it that way. Can we disable the stupid dancing banana pop-up? I'm also trying to figure out why I'm still getting sound. All right, you.
You could probably just turn it down in Windows, right? Just mute it.
Yeah, I guess.
I'll try to get rid of the stupid dancing banana.
Yeah, take off the dancing banana for now.
Got it.
Let's see, and then what else we got? Yeah, where is that coming from? I actually have all sounds muted on these tabs, so where the heck is that coming from? That's funny.
I believe I may have fixed it, the sound, on my end.
Okay, no more dancing bananas.
Yes,
Yay.
I definitely did fix the dancing banana, that's for sure. And also, you guys can leave messages when you tip. We have received one. I will read the message when you tip, so go ahead and leave a message if you do decide to donate, and I'll leave it to Leonard now.
Okay, let's talk about our first. Well, actually, no, I don't want to. I almost skipped something here. I know that some of you have been asking for an update in the Alex Malware case. This is not like a complete update video, but just to give you a very brief update. If you aren't familiar with the Imagos versus Alex Malware case, this is the case where StarMazer DSP and basically anything related to it were hit with DMCA notices over the summer. She sent over 100 DMCA notices that I'm aware of, and took down the game, took down people's videos, took down Imagos's videos, took down Don Thacker's videos, creator and owner of Imagos. And the case has been progressing, and if you've been following it, we were to schedule a deposition and have the actual under oath interview with the defendant, and she actually did appear last Monday, and we had the deposition, and it went fine, and there was nothing out of the ordinary to report about it. And while I'm not going to reveal my strategy or reveal any secrets that I discovered during the deposition, I can say that it was nothing surprising. There were no major changes or anything to her side of the story. She maintains that she felt she was working under different contracts and therefore they had different copyright rights. So while I don't think that that's a great defense, I will do my own things privately and then report back to you when I've got my stuff together and have decided how we're going to proceed. How we are going to proceed from here is the court reporter takes some time to get us the transcript, and then I will have additional documents for her to respond to by the end of this month. Then she'll have 30 days to respond to those documents. And so we're probably not looking at any major news in the case besides a slightly more complete update video from me until probably January is when I would expect that we would have the next court hearing or major movement in the case because of the 30 days that she'll have to respond to whatever I send her next week. So no, the judge has not announced the next court date. The judge literally said, quote, "Let's see what happens," when asked by his clerk if another court date should be scheduled. So in response to that, The judge was very unsure or wanted to see what happens. I'll be reporting to the judge. We have something called a discovery conference, and I already filed something with the judge called a discovery conference status report. It's a required thing, and if you followed me last week on the Sunday stream, you may have heard that I filed it really not late, but the judge said he wanted it earlier than at the conference, and he didn't get it from me until at the conference. But that's okay, because it was supposed to be a report of how the two parties were working together, and the two parties were not working together, so the report was very short. But it basically, I'm just going to update that status report and send that to the judge, saying that she did appear, here's my plan. If the judge has any updates from there, I'm sure he'll set a court date or put an order on the docket or contact the parties or something. But so far, no, there's no additional court dates set, and we're waiting for, basically for me to do this next part, and then procedurally we'll go from there. What we're in is the discovery phase, where the parties get to exchange relevant information. For example, the contract would be prime discoverable stuff. Emails between the parties would be discoverable stuff. So we've already had to exchange some information. The deposition is part of the exchange of information. I get to ask her questions under oath, and we'll go from here. Discovery is not over. It will proceed for the next undisclosed, undetermined period of time, probably 30 to 60 days. Like I said, she has 30 days to respond to the thing I'm sending in the next 2 weeks. So it'll probably be January. As far as the money, we are through most of the, I think, $19,000 that we have raised. The depositions are expensive, the transcripts are expensive, and we've put in a rather large amount of time, while also working at a half rate. So it's been an adventure. I don't foresee that I'm going to blow through the remaining money anytime quickly. Like I said, there's not a lot to do. Like there's documents I have to send her. There'll be some hours there, but there's not hundreds of hours to do right now. The next major part would be a motion for summary judgment, and by the time we get there, I'll have made another video begging you for money on the crowdfunding campaign. But just to prime the pump, I thought maybe I'd mention it here so that nobody accuses me of not letting you know that we're going to run out of money eventually. I think I've been pounding on that drum a bit, that if we got this far, we were not going to be able to do it with just what we got. But I also don't want to minimize the generosity and this amazing keeps coming to mind. It's just truly amazing to me that the community came together for Dawn and for Imagos and for the game, and raised what is almost $20,000 so far for this legal defense. Well, this defensive offense that we've had to do. So we're going to keep going, and thank you for all of your support. And that's all I have to say about that. We could do something like that. Tactical Bra says that we could read the Carter Page testimony to raise funds for Imagos. I have some ideas. I have some ideas for charity. That's a good one. I like that. There's got to be something like a desert bus game we can play or something. Another one, I had an idea of reading public domain books for charity, like I don't know, there was that one pirate book that we were reading for the 25 or 50,000 subscriber live stream. So Dreamer Dawn Tactical has the Carter Page testimony. She was going through it. I'm not throwing her under the bus here. She's not responsible for anything. It's 243 pages long, so that's why it would be like a charitable level event, because you see how long it takes to get through 30 or 40 pages here. We can be going on for 2 hours. So 243 pages could easily be a 24-hour live stream. Or, you know, maybe a little bit less. My voice is going to go out. Things are going to happen. So We'd have to either do it soon because I have a concert coming up in December and I'd like my vocal cords to heal, or we would have to do it after the holiday when Carter Page testimony wouldn't really be relevant. So I guess we should do that soon if we're going to do that. All right, so our first major story this week is out of another Russian thing, but it's not a Russian political thing, although I guess it's loosely connected to it. It certainly wasn't meant to be a sort of political connection. But you may have heard that Kaspersky Labs was involved with some sort of breach of security with the National Security Administration. The short version of this story is that the NSA had an employee who downloaded some classified data onto his home computer. His home computer was running Kaspersky's antivirus software, and the software picked up some malware on the computer, packaged it, and sent it to Kaspersky for analysis. This is apparently a normal thing that antivirus programs do. It sounds totally normal to me that they would grab whatever they thought was a virus and send it off. I imagine you probably agree to this as part of your terms of service or something. But either way, they get this little package. It's like this little zip file or something, and they open it up. And inside is a virus, or several actually, plus some worms and some new things they haven't seen, and some documents, like PDF files. And when they look at the PDF files, they literally have like classified stamped across the top and the National Security Agency listed on them. So they're like, oh shit. They claim that they deleted the PDF classified documents within days, did not copy them, whatever, but that they kept the other materials. And that's where I thought we should start this story. In early October, a story was published in the Wall Street Journal alleging Kaspersky Labs software was used to download classified data from an NSA employee's home computer. Given that Kaspersky Lab has been at the forefront of fighting cyber espionage and crime for over 20 years, these allegations were treated very seriously by the company. To gather facts and address any concerns, Kaspersky Lab conducted an internal investigation. The preliminary results of the investigation were published on October 25th. These outline the general findings of the company's search for evidence of the alleged event reported by the media. The new report published today confirms the initial findings and provides additional insight on the analysis of Kaspersky Labs' products telemetry related to the incident. This telemetry describes suspicious activity registered on the computer in question during the time frame of the incident in 2014. Background. On September 11, 2014, a Kaspersky Lab product installed on the computer of a US-based user reported an infection of what appeared to be variants of malware used by the Equation APT group, a sophisticated cyber threat actor whose activity had already been under active investigation since March of 2014. Sometime after this, the user seems to have downloaded and installed pirated software on this machine, specifically a Microsoft Office ISO file, which is like a virtual CD, and an illegal Microsoft Office 2013 activation tool, a keygen tool. To install the pirate copy of Office 2013, the user appears to have disabled the Kaspersky Lab product on their computer. Because executing the illegal activator tool would not have been possible with the antivirus software installed or enabled. The illegal activation tool contained within the Office ISO file was infected with malware. The user was infected with this malware for an unspecified period while the Kaspersky Lab product was inactive. The malware consisted of a full-blown backdoor, which I think might have been the Dooku worm, I'm not sure, which could have allocated or allowed other third parties to access the user's machine. When re-enabled, the Kaspersky Lab product detected the malware with the verdict backdoor Win32 MOX HVL and blocked this malware from calling out to a known command and control server. The first detection of the malicious setup program was on October 4th, 2014. In addition, the antivirus product also detected and new and previously known variants of Equation APT, One of the files detected by the product as new variants of Equation APT malware was a 7-zip archive, which was sent back. In accordance to the end user and KSN license agreements, there you go, to the Kaspersky Virus Lab for further analysis. Oh, Kaspersky? Thank you. I bet that's bothering some people. Kaspersky. Is that the correct pronunciation? Thank you. Upon analysis, it was discovered that the archive contained a multitude of files, including known and unknown tools of Equation Group, source code, as well as classified documents. The analyst reported the incident to the CEO. Following a request from the CEO, the archive itself, source code, and any apparently classified data were deleted within days from the company's systems. However, files that are legitimate malware binaries currently remain in Kaspersky Labs storage. The archive was not shared with any third parties. The reason Kaspersky Lab deleted those files and will delete similar ones in the future is twofold. First, it needs only malware binaries to improve protection, and secondly, it has concerns regarding the handling of potentially classified material. Because of this incident, a new policy was created for all malware analysts. They are now required to delete any potentially classified material that has been accidentally collected during anti-malware search. This investigation did not reveal any other similar incidents in 2015, 16, or 17. To date, no other third-party intrusion aside from Dooku 2 has been detected in Kaspersky's Labs networks. Did I get that? Kaspersky's Labs networks. To further support the objectivity of the internal investigation, we ran it using multiple analysts, including those of non-Russian origin and working outside of Russia to avoid even potential accusations of influence. Additional findings. One of the major early discoveries of the investigation was that the PC in question was infected with the MOX backdoor, a malware allowing malicious users remote access to a computer. As part of the investigation, Kaspersky Lab researchers took a deeper look at this backdoor and other non-equation threat-related telemetry sent from the computer. Curious MOX backdoor background. It is publicly known that the MOX backdoor, also known as Smokebot or Smoke Loader, appeared on Russian underground forums as it was made available for purchase in 2011. Kaspersky Lab research shows that during the period of September to November of 2014, the command and control servers of this malware were registered to presumably a Chinese entity going by the name of Zhu Lu. Or Zhou, I don't even know. Moreover, deeper analysis of Kaspersky Lab telemetry showed that the MOX backdoor may not have been the only malware infecting the PC in question at the time of the incident, as other illegal activation tools and keygens were discovered on the same machine. More non-equation malware. Over a period of 2 months, the product reported alarms on 121 items of non-equation malware, backdoors, exploits, trojans, and adware. All of these alerts, combined with the limited amount of available telemetry, means that while we can confirm our product spotted the threats, it is impossible to determine if they were executed during the period the product was disabled. Kaspersky Lab continues to research the other malicious samples, and further results will be published soon as the analysis is finished. Conclusions. The overall conclusions of the investigation are the following. The Kaspersky Lab software performed as expected and notified our analysts of alert on signatures written to detect Equation APT group malware that was already under investigation for 6 months. All of this in accordance with the description of the declared product functionality, scenarios, and legal documents which the user agreed to prior to the installation of the software. What is believed to be potentially classified information was pulled back because it was contained within an archive that fired on an equation-specific APT malware signature. Besides malware, the archive also contained what appeared to be source code for Equation APT malware and 4 Word documents bearing classification markings. Kaspersky Lab doesn't possess information on the content of those documents as they were deleted within days. I like how they keep mentioning that it's within days. Kaspersky Lab cannot assess whether the data was handled appropriately according to U.S. government norms, since our analysts have not been trained on handling U.S. classified information, nor are they under any legal obligation to do so. The information was not shared with any third party. Contrary to multiple media publications, no evidence has been found that Kaspersky Lab researchers have ever tried to issue silent signatures aimed at searching for documents with words like top secret and classified and other similar words. The Moke's backdoor infection and potential infections of other non-equation malware point to the possibility that user data could have been leaked to an unknown number of third parties as a result of remote access to this computer. As a completely transparent company, Kaspersky Lab is ready to provide additional details of the investigation in a responsible manner to relevant parties from government organizations and clients concerned about recent media reports. Read the full report here, as well as a technical analysis of the Moke's backdoor here. The full report is here, and it might be just a little bit too long for us to go through. It goes into detail on the Wall Street Journal article. It goes into detail of the search and the detections that were counted in this file. So it goes into a little bit more of the technical detail that if you want to read, you can do a quick search. It's on their website. Just go to Kaspersky Lab and search for one of their press releases, and you can find all the links there. Lots and lots and lots of exploits on this computer. So here they have another list of conclusions. Let's go through these. At this point, we had the answers to the questions we felt could be answered. To summarize, we address each one below. Question: was our software used outside of its intended functionality? Answer: the software performed as expected and notified our analysts of alerts and signatures detected that were written to detect equation group malware. When did it occur? Between September 11th and November 17th, 2014. Who was the person? Because our software anonymizes certain aspects, we are unable to pinpoint specifically. What we can determine is that the user was originating from an IP address that was supposedly assigned to a Verizon FiOS address pool for the Baltimore, Maryland surrounding area. Was there actually classified information? What is believed to be potentially classified information was pulled back because it was contained within an archive. Besides malware, the archive contained what appeared to be source code for equation malware and 4 Word documents bearing classification markings. What happened to the said data after? After discovering the suspected malware, the analyst reported the incident to the CEO. Following a request, the archive was deleted from our systems. This sounds like we've gone over this before. This is just more of the same. But there's more details in here if anyone is interested in going through the individual details. And then they even go through and have an appendix of the detections, the MD5 checksums, hashes and such of what they detected in this file or something like that. Analysis of the Moke Smokebot backdoor. So this is an analysis of just that one particular backdoor. So what do you think of that? That sounds like some irresponsible computing from an NSA employee. And I mean, with enough employees, there's bound to be some incident someplace, right? I'm not saying that they're immune to having incidents and accidents, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? And they have these tools that they are using, they're exploiting and creating and encouraging, and they want to have things like backdoors into security systems or be able to bypass encryption and things. Especially American law enforcement would love to have that, and I understand why. I understand it would be great if we had an X-ray vision and could see all the criminals and just pick them out off the street and lock them up. That's not how it works, though. It's not due process. That's not how it works. But an NSA agent who is working on malware for the NSA, or possibly analyzing third-party malware for the NSA, putting Russian antivirus software on his home computer while he has potentially, or she has potentially classified information on that computer. There's a bunch of things that went wrong here that should not have happened. This is not the proper handling of classified information on the NSA's part, not Kaspersky's lab part. If this is all true, remember we just read a press release from Kaspersky's lab. Kaspersky lab. I'm gonna get this right, I swear. We just read this press release. It's their press release. They're writing it from their perspective. Are they lying? I don't know. I don't think so. But it is written from their perspective, so it is open to a challenge from someone providing an additional perspective. So you have to take it with at least a grain of salt and some natural skepticism. But it looks legit to me so far. Kaspersky. Brandon, anything to report?
Many things to report. Are you ready?
Yes, go for it.
All right. Thank you to the following people for subscribing to us on Twitch. We have Metal Kurt, Whiskers is Cat, DJ Bolio, SoraCat42, Twat Plus. Oh, I said that. Twat Plus.
You might have to censor some of the
demonetized. Yeah, that wasn't his name. I said it wrong. Uku Tigos. Fadi K.
His name, I said it wrong.
Skewer.
Oh, sorry, Vib. We have links turned off. I don't think you can post a link.
Grumpets.
You can send it to one of us in our Discord.
Stella Paul, Twixops, Sinixon, Tiafuzzle, Tyfuzzle, Killer Nat, The Craven, Hat, Flavor Seaver, Tohale, Amperage 21, First Gear, JCell 4569, Aramel 123, Salmon the Bus, Chris YT, Benny's Mani, and Thomas J78. Some funny names on here. For cheers, we have KateBot cheered 200. Please stop the Danish shit posting. Bodie cheered 1000. He just said yay.
Thank you, Bodie. Thank you, Kate.
LJB 2331 cheered 1500. Aaron Yeager cheered 55. KateBot cheered 100, saying just B-Day 100. Okay. And then we do have a couple of tips as well. One from Luciole said, they tipped $1.32, said, love what you're doing. Thanks, Leonard. That is our only tip, actually.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to guess that it's Synsin. Synxin.
Probably.
I don't know. We'll see. All right, so that's pretty cool. Wow, I'm really I don't know if you can see the smile on my face over here. 644 viewers. Holy mackerel. This is awesome. You guys are great. Oh, wait, we have another visitor. Same visitor. You want to come up? I know you don't always like to come up. You're also very heavy. Oh, there we go. Oh, I gotcha. There we go. Dog break. Oh. Dog break.
Inanimate Carbon Todd mentions that it's possible that this is actually a honeypot to see how Kaspersky would react to something like this.
Could be. It definitely could be. You're a good boy.
The full stream, I believe, will be available as a VOD on Twitch. Am I wrong about that?
I don't have a problem leaving it up as a. I don't have a problem leaving it up as a VOD on Twitch. That's fine. Yes, there is no need for you to subscribe and Patreon. Unless you want to, you're perfectly welcome to, and encouraged even. But it's not necessary. And Brandon, maybe you could make a note, and we could look into making sure that Twitch subscribers are recognized as patrons at the $5 level or whatever.
Actually, we can actually set up another group for Twitch subscribers that also have access to the patrons channel if you want.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
We probably don't need more than one channel, but definitely another role or something would be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wild Hufflepuff, for the 500. Nice to see you streaming on Twitch. All right, so we have two more major stories. I'm not going to keep you here for hours today. Also, it just wasn't well, we did a bunch of the stories this week. I actually got to produce a couple of them offline, like regular edited videos. So that might be what we do, more of the edited videos on YouTube and more of the live stuff on Twitch. I don't know. We'll see. So far, this is going well. The core audience is here, and everything seems to be working. So we're open to the possibilities. Okay, so the next story that I have for you, after I burp. So the next story that I have for you here is this this one out of Georgia. There was recently a conclusion or partial conclusion to this case where Georgia high school students were subjected to a Fourth Amendment search, or rather an illegal search in violation of the Fourth Amendment, and they won $3 million against the sheriff. The sheriff was then indicted, 6-count indictment after controversial school search. What were the indictments? It doesn't say specifically what the indictment was. Sexual battery, violation of oath of office of a public officer. I guess other charges, I'm not sure. Then recently the governor issued an executive order removing him from the office of Sheriff of Worth County and appointing the deputy sheriff, I think, as his temporary replacement. So this is the amended complaint that they won $3 million from. Plaintiffs buying through their next friends and guardians, because these are children they sue through their parents, on behalf of themselves and the class alleged herein. This is a civil rights action arising from a mass search of 900 students at a Worth County high school at the direction of Sheriff Jeff Hobby. Plaintiffs bring this action to redress violations of the 4th and 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Plaintiffs' class representatives are 9 Worth County high school students were subjected to unlawful and intrusive searches. Defendants' mass search of all or nearly all of the high school students took place on Friday, April 14th, 2017. On that date, Sheriff Hobby and his deputies placed the high school on lockdown for 4 hours. About 40 uniformed officers from 5 law enforcement agencies arrived on school grounds. Educational programs were interrupted. Students were directed to remain in specified areas without explanation as to what was happening, and students' cell phones were seized. At about 8 a.m., defendants, under the direct orders and supervision of Sheriff Jeff Hobby, including some other officers, conducted a drug sweep, indiscriminately searching all or nearly all students' persons and clothes using police dogs to search their bags, classrooms, lockers, and cars. The sheriff's mass search included a hands-on body search of every or nearly every student in attendance at school that day, including students with disabilities. Defendants' searches of students were intrusive, performed in an aggressive manner, and done in full view of other students. For example, deputies ordered students to stand facing the wall with their hands and legs spread wide apart. Deputies touched and manipulated students' breasts and genitals. Deputies inserted fingers inside girls' bras, pulled up girls' bras, touching and partially exposing their bare breasts. Deputies touched girls' underwear by placing hands inside the waistbands of their pants or reaching up their dresses. Deputies touched girls' vaginal areas through their underwear. Deputies cupped or groped boys' genitals and touched their buttocks through their pants. Deputies had no warrant or other authority to perform a mass search on hundreds of public school children. The purported justification for this mass search was to discover drugs. To that end, Sheriff Hobby had a list of 13 students on a target list that he suspected of possessing drugs. The target list included only 3 students who were in school on April 14th. Defendants had no basis for suspecting any other student of involvement in unlawful activity. No illegal controlled substances or drug paraphernalia were discovered during the mass search. So let's stop for a second. You have a Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure. And that is a recognized right. That is not a right that you leave at the door when you go to school, when you go to high school, or when you set foot in a government building, or when you work for a government authority or entity. The Fourth Amendment right to unreasonable search and seizures is definitely a little bit different when you are a high school student, but it is not suspended. You still have a right to due process of law before a search and seizure. What is the due process of law for a search and seizure? It's very complicated. Usually it means the officer needs some kind of probable cause or a warrant, and usually a warrant needs some kind of probable cause. There are different kinds of warrants, there are different levels of probable cause, and this is not a discussion of criminal policy and procedure and law. But the point is that you can't walk into a school, lock it down, and search everybody to see what you find. You have to have some kind of reasonable suspicion or probable cause that's recognized by the criminal law as it applies to these students, and in general for the whole public, but it applies slightly differently for these students. So he has to know this law, and he'd want to consult with his county's attorneys, the prosecution, the district attorney who's responsible for prosecuting these cases. The district attorney would want to approve all of this first, and preferably get a warrant. And that warrant is normally tailored to the specific kind of search and the people and the places that can be searched and all that. So apparently none of that happened, and that's a big deal. No illegal substances were found during the search. Defendants had no right to touch, pat down, or manipulate the body parts of plaintiffs or other students. Defendants had no right to search plaintiffs' clothes or undergarments. Defendants' unlawful conduct injured plaintiffs by causing them fear, embarrassment, stress, and humiliation. Plaintiffs seek damages and declaratory relief for members of the class of all students searched and seized by Worth County Sheriff's Office employees on April 14th. Let's see what else is in here. We're not going to go through the individual plaintiffs. Defendant Jeff Hobby is the sheriff of Worth County. He planned, organized, executed, directly supervised. He was present during the search, intended for his deputies to conduct the searches described herein, is liable, could have intervened. He acted under color of law. And then there are the other employees and deputies and officers and things are all listed here. There's no need to go through all of this. I think the major accusations have already been fleshed out. Sorry for your eyes. Class allegations. This is being done as a class action lawsuit. Plaintiffs bring this class individually, seek to certify. Class is so numerous that joinder is impracticable. Every class member's claim turns on the same question common to the class. The claims of the named plaintiffs are typical of the class. The plaintiffs will fairly and adequately protect the interests of the class. And then here's their statement of the facts. Hobby maintains a target list of people he intends to investigate because he suspects they have committed crimes. He placed 13 Worth County High School students on the target list. In late March 2017, he informed the principal that he planned to conduct a search at the school. He did not inform the principal that he planned to conduct a search of all or nearly all students at the school. The administration did not know or permit the defendants to conduct body searches of each student. The school resource officer was attending training and was unaware of the plan. Although he did not share his plan, it was his plan to conduct hands-on body searches. To ensure that a sufficient number of his officers would be present to search the school's 900 students, he ordered all of his deputies to report for work on the morning of the search. He personally ordered several defendants to search every or nearly every student, personally supervised it. Upon arriving at the school, he gave the principal a list of the 13 names. He ordered that the students on the target list be brought to the administrative offices and isolated there for the duration of the search. The 3 students in attendance that day whose names appeared on that list were brought to the administrative offices, and they were held until the search concluded. Defendant had no reason to believe that any student in school that day had any illegal substance or engaged in any otherwise unlawful activity. The school administration, not defendant, the school administration did not have any individualized suspicion or any reason to believe that any student in school that day, with the possible exception of the 3 students on the list, that they had any illegal substance or engaged in any unlawful activity. With respect to the plaintiffs who were subject to searches of their bras or underwear, defendants had no reasonable suspicion of danger and no reason to believe that any student was hiding any controlled substance or other prohibited item in their undergarments. At the request of the sheriff, the school made an official announcement over the intercom shortly after school began on the morning of April 14th, indicating the school was being placed on lockdown. This was the first time that teachers learned that law enforcement activity of any kind would be occurring at the school that day. Following the announcement of the lockdown, plaintiffs were confined to their first period classrooms, to the hallways immediately outside the classrooms, or to the gym. Their cell phones were seized, so they could not reach their parents. Plaintiffs were prevented from contacting their parents during the entire duration of the search. This is also a very big deal. Part of a student's due process rights is to be able to contact their parents and have their parents either represent them or gain representation, or at the very least be notified that the child's in trouble. The school is usually not allowed to start searching or enact certain strict punishments and things without first contacting the parents. It's another civil rights violation, basically. During the lockdown and mass search, defendants restricted students' access to restrooms. Some students were not permitted to go to the restroom for the entire 4-hour lockdown period. The deputies conducting the searches, including searches that involved touching undergarments, sometimes did not wear gloves and did not change their gloves between searches. Despite searching approximately 900 students, defendants did not discover any illegal drugs or drug paraphernalia. It goes into some specific allegations. This student's legs were kicked open, pulled their bra away from the body by underwire and flipped it up, slid hands down ankles up to pelvic area, hands stopped on and cupped the vaginal area and buttocks. I'm not going to keep reading too much of this. You get the idea. It was an invasive search. Basically stopped short of a body cavity search. Defendants' unlawful mass search injured plaintiffs. Defendants' actions harmed plaintiffs by causing them injury, including anxiety, embarrassment, and humiliation. Experienced fear, shame, emotional distress. Damaged their ability to trust law enforcement officers and persons in positions of authority in general. Yeah, welcome to the club. That's a big deal. Let me make a point of that as well. Like, all of the other stuff is a big deal as well. But what law enforcement or other authorities miss when they overextend and they disrespect is that they are also establishing the basis, the foundation for all of the people that they don't like who say, you know, cops are one way or another. Some of that's hyperbolic, some of that's extreme, but some of it is also just a genuine, founded lack of trust for authority. I'll tell you again the very very brief version of my story. I called 311 or whatever. It was actually 911, but I called, for assistance on the roadway because the sign said report aggressive drivers, and I had reported an aggressive truck driver who drove 2 cars off the road, and then I had given him the finger because he drove 2 cars off the road, and that was my mistake because then he followed me until he could get me trapped someplace and then tried to get me out of the car. Well, I reported that. The cop was so mad that I had the audacity to report that he charged me with an unsafe lane change. Then didn't show up to court. So what do you think that does for my respect for authority? Now, I'm an attorney. I was an attorney at the time. I knew how to handle it. And the cop was just being a jerk. But that's not right. That's not... You don't use your authority to be a jerk. And in this case, whether or not he was trying to be a jerk, Sheriff Jeff Hobby, used his powers for more than his powers were to be used for, and now 900 students, or some significant portion of them, do not trust law enforcement, and are probably not going to cooperate very much with law enforcement in the future, or at the very least are going to cooperate only after asking themselves some very careful questions about how much they trust law enforcement. It is clearly established that law enforcement officers violate the Constitution when, at their own instigation, in an effort to obtain evidence of illegal drug possession, search and seize the body of any person, including a student, without probable cause. See State v. Young, Georgia, 1975, explaining that while attenuated Fourth Amendment protections apply to searches conducted by public school officials, remember I said that there were some limits, that the Fourth Amendment does have some limitations for schools and things, entirely without the participation of law enforcement officers are, of course, bound by the full panoply of the Fourth Amendment rights when searching students. So there you go. In Georgia, law enforcement officers have to observe the Fourth Amendment even for students. See also State v. KLM, requiring probable cause for the in-school search of a student by a law enforcement officer, even though the search was directed by the principal, because the officer was a law enforcement officer who participated in the search. So probable cause would be a higher standard than reasonable suspicion, meaning the officer needs more information and more cause to conduct a search. Unlike a school official, a police officer must have probable cause to search a suspect in Georgia. Probably generally speaking as well, but definitely in Georgia. It is clearly established that probable cause requires individualized suspicion, and that mere attendance at a large school at which a few students are suspected of possessing drugs is not sufficient to establish probable cause or otherwise render the search and seizure of a body of a student reasonable by and at the investigation or instigation of law enforcement officers for the purpose of obtaining evidence of illegal drug possession. See Ibarra v. Illinois, a person's mere propinquity. Wow, that's a new one. I haven't seen that. A person's proximation or locality to others independently suspected of criminal activity is not without more, does not without more give rise to probable cause to search that person. Where the standard is probable cause, a search or seizure of a person must be supported by probable cause particularized with respect to that person. See also Swint v. City of Wadley, probable cause to arrest one suspect and even probable cause to believe that a number of others or unidentified people had sold drugs in the establishment in the past does not give officers carte blanche to seize everyone who happened to be in the club when the 2 raids took place. Defendants had not obtained warrants to arrest or search plaintiffs. Plaintiffs did not consent to being seized or searched. None of the searches, including the searches of plaintiffs, occurred incident to lawful arrests. There are no exigent circumstances to justify the searches. These are all the reasons why searches can be conducted. Even if defendants had seized or searched the bodies of plaintiffs at the behest of school administrators, they would still have violated their rights. Defendants had fair warning that their conduct was unconstitutional because a mass search of nearly 900 public school children by law enforcement without any individualized suspicion clearly and obviously violates the Constitution. See Gray ex rel. Alexander v. Bostic, discussing obvious clarity cases in the school seizure context. This is from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Based on the totality of circumstances, the searches and seizures of plaintiffs were plainly unreasonable. The conduct of defendants lies so obviously at the very core of what the Fourth Amendment prohibits that the unlawfulness of the conduct was readily apparent. The defendants are liable. Okay, so count 1 is an unconstitutional search and seizure. Count 2 is a violation of right to privacy. And that's it. And this was filed by the Southern Center for Human Rights. What do you think of that? That's pretty epic. And we know they won. They won $3 million, which is about $3,300 per student. I don't know how that's going to be distributed or whatever, what the agreements are there. But yeah, so if you're in school, this is not allowed to happen to you. What to do if it does, that's a good question. I leave that to you and your parents to discuss this case, especially if I'm actually addressing a high school student. It's illegal. You should definitely not become violent, but at the same time, how do you make it clear as a student that you're not allowing a search? So I'll tell you what I tell everybody. You can beat the ride, but you can beat the time, but you can't beat the ride. So the ride in this case is the ride of the experience of being searched. So you might have to suffer through that and then sue. That's more or less what you do. You should not physically try and oppose a sheriff, especially a sheriff with an ego large enough to think that he is above all of the First Amendment and Fourth Amendment law that we have in this country that was, like they said, clearly established. So there is a criminal case with assault charges, Iwan, if you hadn't seen that. There were 6 indictments returned. Let's see. The indictment says that sheriff violated the terms of his oath by ordering deputies to search students. It goes on to say that he and one of his deputies made physical contact with intimate parts of students' bodies. So it looks like there are some kind of assault, battery charges, oath of public office charges that have been filed. I was not able to find a PDF copy of that indictment immediately. So that's interesting. What do you think of that? Now, I want to say you should leave your thoughts in the comments below, but we don't have that on Twitch, do we, Brandon?
We do not. However, we do have the question form still. So I have been sending that periodically.
So I guess while we're not going to have the normal comments discussion that we have in YouTube, what I will try to do is take this video that I'm recording from this, because this presentation went reasonably well, in my humble opinion, and I'll cut that up and we'll release that on YouTube as a cut video. I will try to be much more generous with the space between words. I am using a plugin now to try and reduce my editing time, but it has settings, and I'm just trying to figure out the right settings. And a lot of people don't like the max headroom effect that it's been giving me. So I will make some of those adjustments myself, and instead of trying to edit out every tiny little pause, I'll only be editing out the major pauses as part of my workflow. And you don't want to hear about my workflow, so let's get to the next story. Or, I guess, to your questions, comments, and any subscriptions or announcements that you wanted to make, Brandon.
Yes, sir. New stuff. We have Tronbon3 has subscribed. Fale 2008. And Dusty Music all have subscribed to the channel. Thank you very much. Something from STBA D Returns. Wow. Sorry about that. Cheered 100 bits. SZ Pigglebomb tipped 557. A tip from Poland before the Scandinavians take over. Keep up the good job, Leonard.
Thank you very much.
Wild Hufflepuff cheered 500 bits. Nice to see you streaming the Sunday stream on Twitch. Cheered 100 bits. Kayokane just subscribed. And Kate Bot says 100 bits for...
Yeah, we got it.
You don't want me to say that one?
It's okay.
You have a pretty
You
mouth.
can say it.
All right, that's
supposed to be purdy. You got a purdy mouth.
You got a purdy mouth.
That is a great movie, by the way. If you haven't seen Deliverance, it is a great movie. It's creepy as heck, but it is a great movie. In fact, I think that's why the movie is great. It's like an outdoorsy, creepy movie.
We do have a few questions relevant to that story if you want me to ask them now.
Sure, go for it.
From Dreamer Don, will all the defendants be treated the same, or will the sheriff get the blunt of the penalties, do you think?
I don't know how that one... I'm assuming the sheriff will get the brunt of the penalties because he ordered everybody to do that. But at the same time, those cops should open their mouths and say, "Sheriff, this is an illegal search. I can't do this." You know, they have an oath as well. Like, for example, if I go and consult with another attorney, and that attorney says, "Oh yeah, you can go file this and it'll be fine," and then I file it and the judge says I did something wrong and it's bad and I need to correct something or worse, it's on me. It's not... I can probably pull the other attorney into it somehow, but it's still on me. So the cops should definitely be suffering some kind of punishment or retraining or something. Obviously, they're already... the county, through the taxpayers, is going to have to pay the $3 million. Does that deter the sheriff from doing this again? I don't know. I feel like the indictment is what we need to deter the sheriff from doing this again. He got removed from being sheriff, and he'll be indicted, and his staff will be indicted. So I'll let those chips fall where they may. That's a tough one. So if you conduct a search and it's a proper search, then they were just doing what they think was a proper search. And while I'm not saying that they shouldn't know that this was not a proper search, it wasn't more than that. It wasn't... Nobody is, as far as I read so far, nobody said that anyone groped them more than what was necessary for a search. So while I'm, again, not defending it, I'm saying that there are levels to these things, and it's not the same as sexual assault as it is for... Well, maybe it is. Maybe that's what the indictment is. Maybe the indictment is for some kind of sexual assault. But I would think this would fall more under the regular assault category. What do you think? I'm appalled by this. But do you lock up all the cops like they just walked up and groped a young lady, or do you slap them on the wrists because they were told to by their boss and they really thought that they had some kind of authority to do it? It's still wrong. It's still really, really, really wrong either way. But what the appropriate punishment is really, I think that's a really good up for discussion topic. I'm not sure. I don't know what the appropriate punishment is. I think I would need to see each individual case and see what they did, how egregious it was, whether they're remorseful, and what they're going to do to correct it in the future. And then maybe we can talk about whether that deserves further punishment or not. I definitely think that the sheriff deserves to spend some time in jail, even if it's 30 or 90 days. I don't know if is longer worth it. Do you think it's worth it to put him in jail for a year or two? I mean, somebody who gets drunk and drives goes to jail for 6 months to a year on their second offense or whatever. So is this that bad? Is this as bad as a second or third offense drunk driving incident? I don't know. Maybe that's apples to orange. Maybe I should compare it to other civilian assaults or something. See how much see how much prison time Georgia gives for certain civilian offenses that are similar. Well, here Neon White One. Let's play the game of hyperbole. Obviously, life sentences is too much. So between letting them off with no punishment and a life sentence, there has to be something in between, right? And then we just keep playing the game of hyperbole. It's obviously not a life sentence with parole. Okay, so it's obviously not 30 years, it's not 20 years, it's not 10 years, it's not 5 years, not 4. It's gotta be like a year or less, right? I mean, it was 900 students though. That's 900 students. So I don't know. That's a really good question. And now you see how court cases get whittled down, and now you've got an issue, and both sides would have to argue what the appropriate punishments are, and each one comes up with their arguments and argues them before the judge, and the judge decides. So that's our second story. And we have one more story, and then I'm going to talk at you for a little bit, take your questions, and then we'll call it a day. So back in 2016, I think it was. Or I've apparently, yes, I apparently don't have the this on this other scene. So hang on one sec. Copy, and then paste. There we go. That's better. So back in 2016, I think it was, there was a lawsuit filed against Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil McGraw was accused of calling all of his employees into a conference room for a lecture, an angry lecture, and while doing so, locking the doors, preventing them from leaving, yelling and screaming at them inappropriately, and retaliating against a woman who was leaking something that she claims was worth leaking. I actually forget what she leaked. What was the thing that she leaked? We're going to figure it out. We're going to go over it. She sued in the Superior Court of the State of California for Los Angeles for false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, whistleblower retaliation, constructive termination. But this is not the story that I wanted to go over this morning. This is background. Dr. Phil sued her back. Said that she had committed copyright infringement by taking video from their archives, unpublished video, and then I think she published it. And so a judge recently issued an order here in August that her use of this video was not a fair use, and then ordered her to stand trial, basically, in Texas, when she wanted to have the case moved to Los Angeles. So I thought we would start, and probably finish, with the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas, Texarkana Division. This is the memorandum opinion order that denies her defense of fair use and grants summary judgment in favor of the plaintiffs on the fair use issue. Before the court is the defendant Leah Rothman's motion to dismiss, or alternatively for summary judgment, having considered the motion with for the reasons set forth below. Said motion is denied with respect to fair use, and on their own, the court will grant summary judgment in favor of plaintiffs on the issue of fair use. Background. Rothman worked for plaintiff Petesky Productions, plaintiff, as a segment director for the Dr. Phil Show from 2003 to early 2015. In April 2015, Rothman sued Petesky and Dr. Phil in California State Court for false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, retaliation, and wrongful termination. Before filing her state court action, Rothman attempted to document a bona fide example of Dr. McGraw's conduct for her lawsuit by recording, using her iPhone, a 9-second clip of Dr. McGraw from a larger archive of unaired footage from his eponymous television show. However, as part of her employment, Rothman had agreed, among other things, to keep confidential and never disclose, use, or misappropriate any statements or comments concerning Dr. Phil McGraw, the Dr. Phil show, or any of his or its confidential information. On May 9th, 2017, Plaintiff Petesky obtained a registered copyright in the 9 seconds of video that Rothman recorded from the Dr. Phil show archives. On June 15th, they filed this lawsuit against defendant alleging infringement of that registered copyright. Defendant filed the instant motion to dismiss, or alternatively for summary judgment, on July 10th. In the motion, defendant sought to dismiss for improper venue, lack of personal jurisdiction, and for failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, or alternatively for summary judgment that her copying was fair use. On July 12th, defendant filed an emergency motion seeking a partial stay of this case so that the court could address her fair use defense before assessing the propriety of venue or personal jurisdiction and before permitting any discovery. In granting this motion, the court also, at defendant's request and based on the need to consider evidence outside the complaint in evaluating Rothman's fair use defense, converted the underlying motion to dismiss with respect to fair use into a motion for summary judgment on Rothman's fair use defense. Consequently, this opinion addresses only the claim of fair use. Legal standard: fair use. Anyone who makes a fair use of a work is not an infringer of the copyright with respect to such use. This principle has been recognized since the infancy of copyright protection as a necessary tool for fulfilling copyright's very purpose. Since its beginning, the doctrine of fair use has been refined, honed, and clarified in many court decisions. However, at the most basic level, fair use is a rule of reason fashioned by judges to balance the author's right of compensation for their work on one hand against the public's interest in the widest possible dissemination of ideas and information on the other. Congress codified fair use as an affirmative defense to copyright infringement at 17 U.S.C. 107. In doing so, Congress in no way intended to depart from court-created principles. Under 107, the courts consider the following statutory factors: the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is commercial or non-profit educational purposes, the nature of the original copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. None of these factors are exclusive or dispositive, but courts have generally placed the most emphasis on the fourth factor. The more transformative the new work, the less will be the significance of the other factors. A motion for summary judgment is properly granted only if there is no genuine issue as to any material fact. A dispute about a material fact is genuine if the evidence presented, viewed in the light most favorable to the non-moving or opposing party, so viewed in favor of the opposite party, if that still permits a reasonable jury to find for the non-moving party, then there is a genuine issue of material fact. However, if such evidence, whether it is offered by the movant to satisfy their initial burden or by the non-movant to defeat a properly supported motion for summary judgment, may not consist entirely of conclusory allegations or unsubstantiated assertions, likewise such evidence must be capable of being presented in a form that would be admissible in evidence. Fair use is a mixed question of law and fact, which means that it may only be resolved on summary judgment if a reasonable trier of fact could reach only one conclusion and not the other. However, where a district court has acts sufficient to evaluate each of the factors, it may conclude as a matter of law that the challenged use is not a protected fair use. This is particularly true where there is no genuine dispute with respect to the facts necessary to evaluate each factor. See Fisher v. Dees, the parties dispute only the ultimate conclusions to be drawn from the admitted facts. Because under Harper and Rowe, these judgments are legal in nature, we can make them without usurping the function of the jury. What they're talking about there is that the function of the jury is to find the facts. The jury determines which facts are true and which facts are not, and which witnesses are credible and which witnesses are not. And then the judge determines how the law applies to those findings of fact. So in this case, they're saying that the judgment of fair use is legal because the parties don't have a disagreement as to the facts that must be determined by the jury. Applicability of fair use. At the outset, plaintiff argues that as a threshold matter, fair use is not an available defense because Rothman admits that she stole the work. In support of its position, plaintiff primarily relies on the Supreme Court statement in Harper and Row that fair use presupposes good faith and fair dealing. Plaintiff's reliance on Harper and Row is unavailing for several reasons. First, in Harper and Row, the Supreme Court did not end its analysis of fair use based on the fact that the defendant had stolen the underlying work. Instead, the court assessed each factor, giving weight to the unpublished nature of the underlying work, the fact that the amount taken was the heart of the work, and the effect that the use had on the market for the work. Second, the Supreme Court returned to its earlier statement, that fair use presupposes good faith and fair dealing. There, the court left at best unresolved the role that bad faith plays in fair use. Regardless of the weight one might place on the alleged infringer's state of mind, even if good faith were essential to fair use, two live crews in that case, actions do not necessarily suggest that they believed their version was not fair use. Third, numerous courts have found that bad faith is not dispositive of fair use, and they cite various cases discussing the exact cases relied on by plaintiff here, and concluding that they do not stand for the proposition that the acquisition of the original work must be in good faith. Finally, the Supreme Court and Congress have consistently rejected presumptions and per se rules in the context of fair use. In Campbell, it was error for the Court of Appeals to conclude that the commercial nature of Two Lives Crew's parody of Oh Pretty Woman rendered it presumptively unfair. The purpose of the 1992 amendment to the Fair Use Law is to clarify the intent of Congress that there be no per se rule barring claims of fair use of unpublished works. Instead, consistent with Congress's codification of fair use in the 1976 Copyright Act, the courts are to determine claims of fair use and unpublished works on a case-by-case basis. Citing statements of Senators Simon, Leahy, Kennedy, Grassley, Metzenbaum, and Cole discussing the 1992 amendment and clarifying that it is designed to reject a per se approach to fair use, at least with respect to evaluating unpublished works. Ultimately, the court concludes that bad faith is not a bar to fair use, let alone a per se bar to fair use, or automatic bar. The relevance and appropriate weight given to bad faith in the fair use inquiry is addressed below. Consideration of the factors. Under the first factor, purpose and character of the use, courts often consider the culpability of a defendant's conduct in acquiring or using a work, the extent to which such use is transformative, and whether such use is for commercial or non-commercial purposes. Harper and Row directs the court to consider a defendant's bad faith in applying the first statutory factor. Veek v. South Building Code Congress International. The key question under the purpose and character prong is whether and to what extent the new work is transformative. And Campbell, the commercial or non-profit educational purpose of the work is one element of the first factor. Defendant's conduct. Plaintiff argues that defendant's conduct, inequitable conduct, and bad faith behavior weigh significantly against the finding of fair use under the first factor. At the outset, evaluating this argument requires determining what conduct by defendant might weaken a claim to fair use. Harper and Row is instructive on this point. There, the Supreme Court explained that fair use distinguishes between a true scholar and a chiseler who infringes a work for personal profit. The court went on to conclude that because the nation knowingly exploited a purloined manuscript, the first fair use factor weighed against fair use. In his dissent, Justice Brennan questioned whether the nation had evidenced bad faith by distinguishing its conduct from the defendant in Time, who personally stole film negatives from the offices of Time. Several other courts have acknowledged that a breach of confidence or deception in acquiring the underlying work should weigh against a finding of fair use. They go on to quote some things I'm going to skip. Merely making use of a work without permission, however, is not necessarily evidence of bad faith. In fact, the Fifth Circuit has described fair use as a privilege in others that the owner of a copyright to use, a privilege in others than the owner of a copyright to use the copyrighted material in a reasonable manner without consent. Plaintiff identifies two examples of bad faith that should weigh against a finding of fair use. First, plaintiff argues that defendant stole the underlying work so she could sell it to the National Enquirer. To support this allegation, plaintiff points to voice messages left for Rothman by the National Enquirer, an article published by the National Enquirer, and a declaration from L. Lynn Wood, who represented Dr. McGraw in a defamation action against the National Enquirer. However, plaintiff has identified no evidence from which a jury could reasonably conclude that Rothman stole the work at issue here to sell it to the National Enquirer. And they show the docket here. Court, all right, as of today, you've got nothing other than speculation and about somebody thinking that somebody got paid, but there's no proof today. I'm not saying what you may or may not find at a later date, but as of right now, that there's not evidence of one nickel having changed hands over this story. That's right, Your Honor. For example, voice messages do not indicate that Rothman ever spoke with the National Enquirer. If anything, they suggest the opposite. Likewise, the National Enquirer article merely lifts facts from Rothman's complaint against Dr. McGraw in California. Finally, the Wood Declaration simply concludes, based solely on Ms. Wood's review and investigation, that defendant was likely paid a substantial sum of money to provide false information to the National Enquirer. No additional pieces of evidence or materials were submitted to plaintiff along with this declaration, by plaintiff along with this declaration. Without more, a single conclusory affidavit devoid of any factual support or explanation is insufficient to meet plaintiff's burden, designating specific facts showing that there is a genuine issue for trial. Second, plaintiff argues that Rothman stole the underlying work in violation of various employment and confidentiality agreements. On this point, there is no real dispute. Rothman has already admitted that she recorded the video using her iPhone. Defendant offered no evidence to dispute that this recording violated several agreements. The more challenging question is how strongly Rothman's conduct weighs against a finding of fair use. In Harper and Rowe, the Supreme Court gave significant weight to the fact that the nation had purloined or stolen the underlying manuscript. By contrast, in Campbell, the Supreme Court suggested that the alleged infringer's state of mind may not even be relevant to determining fair use. The Second Circuit addressed this tension in NXIVM, which also might be a number, by giving some weight to the defendant's conduct while noting that bad faith is not to be weighed very heavily under the first factor, and inviting clearer renunciation by the Supreme Court that the Campbell footnote of bad faith's relevance, clearer renunciation than the Campbell footnotes of the bad faith relevance to fair use inquiry. No renunciation has arrived. Accordingly, the court concludes that conduct involving a violation of law or breach of confidence weighs strongly but not dispositively against fair use under this element, the first factor. This is especially true where the copying is purely for a self-serving purpose. Rothman did not copy to educate the masses or further the greater good. She copied to aid her pending lawsuit seeking money damages where she is the only plaintiff and sole beneficiary. It is possible that a breach of contract or some other act of bad faith may sometimes be necessary to further an important public interest, and therefore such conduct might not always weigh against fair use. However, there is a difference between a defendant who purloins a private manuscript or confidential video for personal gain, and one who obtains or misappropriates or materials of significant public interest. Here, there is no countervailing public interest because Rothman copied the work at issue solely for her own lawsuit, Quote, I recorded the video clip solely because I thought I might need a bona fide example of Dr. McGraw's conduct for my lawsuit. The weight given to Rothman's conduct is in accord with Harper and Rowe, how courts in this circuits have treated the question, and the historical role that bad faith has played in the fair use inquiry. Campbell does not compel a different result. At most, it suggests that using a copyrighted work without permission might not reflect bad faith. The Supreme Court has never held that fair use excuses theft or justifies deception. In fact, Harper and Rowe suggest the opposite. Accordingly, Rothman's conduct weighs against a finding of the first factor of fair use. Transformativeness. In determining whether a use is transformative, courts look to whether the new work merely supersedes the objects of the original creation, or instead adds something new with further purpose or different character, altering the first with new expression, meaning, or message. There is no genuine dispute in this case about why Rothman surreptitiously recorded the video of Dr. McGraw. By her own admission, recording the video clip solely because she thought she had or needed a bona fide example of Dr. McGraw's conduct for her lawsuit. Defendant argues that such use is transformative because many courts have found that using a work in a judicial proceeding is generally a fair use. Indeed, Congress has even listed the reproduction of a work in a legislative or judicial proceeding as an example of a potential fair use in the House report accompanying codification of the fair use at Section 107. Quote, works are customarily reproduced in various types of judicial proceedings, and it seems inconceivable that any court would hold such reproduction to constitute infringement. While it is true that many courts and commentators have acknowledged the general principle that the use of a work in a judicial proceeding may be considered fair use, fewer have addressed whether copying an entire work in preparing a complaint is transformative. For example, in Woolersheim, upon which defendant relies, Woolersheim only includes a cursory discussion of fair use and makes no mention of transformativeness. Here, Rothman made no alteration of the work, nor did she use it as part of a commentary or criticism. Instead, she copied the work to give to her lawyers in the California lawsuit. Even if it is transformative, it is certainly not highly transformative. The crux of the profit-non-profit distinction is whether the user stands to profit from the exploitation of the work. Given that there is no dispute about why she took the recording, the only dispute here is whether using a copyrighted work as part of a lawsuit is a commercial use. The court concludes that at least in this case it is not. Although Rothman obviously stands to gain if she is successful in her lawsuit, damages from that case are compensation for suffered harms rather than profits earned from the sale of goods or provision of services. Under the nature of the copyrighted work factor, courts generally consider two distinct inquiries. First, highly creative or fictional works are afforded maximum protection, hence less likely that the use of such works will be fair use. Second, use of an unpublished work is less likely to be fair use. Plaintiff argues that its copyrighted work is expressive, and thus the second factor analysis also weighs against Rothman's asserted defense of fair use. Defendant responds that the nature of the recording was factual. Navigating between the paradigmatic example of a creative work, I hate that word, paradigm, and a bare factual compilation is treacherous. Quote, it is dangerous. It is a dangerous undertaking for persons trained only to the law to constitute themselves final judges of the worth of pictorial illustrations outside of the narrowest and most obvious limits. This is particularly true with respect to videos like the one at issue here, which depict actual events. For example, courts have frequently reached different conclusions regarding whether candid photographs should be treated as factual because of what they depict, or fictional based on the circumstances under which the work was made. In two cases, a photo was not factual because it was shot from a low angle, framed dramatically, even heroically against the sky. Photographs that are meant to be viewed by the public for informative and aesthetic purposes are generally creative in nature. Other courts have simply found this factor to be neutral, where a candid photograph depicting or documenting a factual subject matter is created as a result of both technical skill and aesthetic judgment. The images at issue contain both informational and creative elements, rendering the degree of creativity a relatively neutral consideration. There is no dispute in this case that the underlying work is a candid recording of an actual event. Additionally, both sides agree that the work was created while the Dr. Phil Show production team was preparing to do a take for an episode, and that the work was subsequently stored along with other footage in the show's video archive. In light of these facts, this court concludes that the work possessed a mixed nature of fact and creativity. This sub-factor is neutral. In addition, fair use traditionally was not recognized as a defense to charges of copying from an author's unpublished works. While Congress rejected this rule in 107, the fact that a work is unpublished continues to figure prominently in fair use analysis. Plaintiff argues that its work is a strictly confidential, unpublished work, and therefore the factor weighs strongly against fair use. Defendant offers no response or argument on this point. The court agrees with plaintiff. Accordingly, factor 2, the nature of the copyrighted work used, weighs strongly against fair use. Amount used. Neither side disputes that Rothman copied the entire work by recording the 9-second video from the archives. This is true, even though the work itself was originally part of a larger archive. Both sides agree that this factor does not weigh in favor of fair use. The court agrees. Effect on the market. This factor requires courts to consider not only actual harm to the market for the original, but also whether widespread use of the work, like the sort of complained of by the copyright holder, would impair the potential market for the original and for derivative works. When the use of a copyrighted work is non-commercial, as here, the plaintiff must identify and establish some meaningful likelihood of future harm. Once a copyright holder establishes with reasonable probability the existence of a causal connection between the infringement and the loss of revenue, the burden properly shifts to the infringer to show that this damage would have occurred had there been no taking of the copyright expression. Here, plaintiff identified two potentially relevant markets. First, plaintiff argues that there is a potential market for outtakes, like the video that defendant copied. Second, plaintiff argues that there is an illicit market for videos showing celebrities in a less than favorable light. However, plaintiff does not wish to exploit either one of those markets. Plaintiff wants to ensure that nobody exploits those markets. While it may be permitted by copyright law, quoting Chicago Board of Ed, federal copyright is available for unpublished works and the author intends to never see the light of day, it complicates the analysis under the fourth fair use factor. On one hand, Rothman's copying caused no loss of revenue because plaintiff, unlike the publisher and Harper and Row, does not want to disseminate this video. On the other hand, even if a plaintiff does not wish to exploit a potential market, they are entitled to protect the opportunity to sell their work in the future. In light of the Salinger case, which this court finds persuasive, the court concludes that plaintiff is entitled to protect its opportunity to sell the video even if it does not wish to do so now. However, even if a potential market exists for the work, plaintiff must still identify a causal connection between the infringement and the affected market. At this point, the record does not support such an inference. In spite of this, plaintiff argues that even knowledge that an unauthorized copy of a video is in possession of a third party could negatively impact their willingness and ability to use such a video. However, there is no evidence that the National Enquirer or some other tabloid knew of this recording before filing this lawsuit. To this extent, these third parties are now aware that the Rothman video has the interest of tabloids. It is the result of plaintiff's lawsuit rather than defendant's copying. Accordingly, while plaintiff has identified a market for the work that might someday be exploited, it failed to identify evidence from which a jury could conclude that the copying impacted that market at all. This factor weighs in favor of fair use. But overall, the court finds that there is no genuine issue, no genuine dispute as to any material fact, and therefore summary judgment on fair use is appropriate. Defendant, by her own admission, took an unpublished work that did not belong to her in violation of confidentiality agreements with plaintiff solely for her personal benefit rather than for commentary, criticism, or public benefit. In light of these circumstances, Based on the undisputed facts in the record, and after carefully weighing all the factors discussed above, the court concludes that summary judgment in favor of plaintiff is appropriate. District courts are widely acknowledged to possess the power of summary judgments on their own, and Movement's own motion for summary judgment opened the door for the district court to grant summary judgment on their own. Accordingly, for the reasons set forth above, defendant's motion for summary judgment is denied, and on their own, summary judgment is granted for plaintiff on the issue of fair use, so ordered this 30th day of August. And it's apparently signed by Gilstrar, even though his name is Gilstrap. I don't know. The R is not near the P, so you got me on that one. What do you think of that? That's a heck of a thing. That's a way to use copyright infringement to try and get back at somebody who's trying to exploit whatever they can because you locked them in a room and yelled at them for a while. I kind of get it. I sort of understand why she would do something like that. But it turns out that it may actually be copyright infringement. And I think I'm going to skip this other document that she filed, which is a transfer of venue. Maybe we'll cover something like this someday as to how venue works in federal court cases, but I honestly can't imagine it's that terribly interesting to go over venue in on a Twitch live stream. Especially when we actually have filled up most of our 2 hours already. Look at this. 619 of you are still here. 53 subscribers. 1,500 cheers from LJB. Wow. How's it going, Brandon?
We're killing it.
This is really cool. Thank you all. Thank you all so very, very much.
I do have some announcements.
So any questions, announcements from that last section?
Sure thing. We have Piprod01 has subscribed. XCake X has subscribed. We also have ST Bad Returns has subscribed. Stormcorp has cheered 100 bits, saying Twitch is here to stay, apparently. I hope Twitch is here to stay. Apologies. The cheers are in the message. It's very strange. We have a cheer from SDA Bad Returns. Just an FYI, it ain't Bad Returns how you say my name. Okay, so how is it? Oh, Saint Bad Returns is how you say her name. I'm sorry, I'm really killing it today, aren't I? A tip from NPR 1999 saying, great stream as always. Having known ex-cops in small towns, USA training and qualifications make second best to Neptunium.
And I want to add that there's another pronunciation of Saint Bad Returns. You often drop the T, like when you pronounce St. John, some people call it Sinjin. So it could be Sinbad Returns. Right?
Good for thought.
So maybe they'll let us know.
Yeah. As for questions, do you want those?
Sure, we can take some questions now.
Stalin, regarding the search of high school students, would one of the students have the right to resist what was obviously an unlawful search, seizure, and/or detainment, or would that be some form of resisting arrest or other crime?
I knew this would be asked. You saw me dancing around this question.
Yeah, you did say you can't. You can beat the time, but you can't beat the riot earlier.
Yeah, so this is a tough question. It's not tough because the law is unclear. As far as I know, the law is pretty clear. You are allowed to resist an unlawful arrest or an unlawful anything. Basically, it's the same thing as a civilian touching you in an inappropriate place. However, I'm going to stop short of advising you to do that. And I would advise you that if you want to figure out what your reaction should be in that specific situation, you really need to talk to somebody from your local area who knows your law enforcement, probably an attorney, a criminal defense attorney in your area, and talk to them about what the appropriate response is. I'll put it this way. If it was me, I would probably have to allow, not consent to it. I would definitely make it known that I do not consent and that I consider it a violation of my rights. But I would explain that I would physically cooperate with any order that an officer is giving me so that we avoid a violent confrontation. But if I decided to react in a violent way, I'm technically not in violation of a law by using reasonable force, which is reasonable under the specific circumstances, to get away. So does that mean that when the officer who thinks he's conducting a search and seizure under the color of law, does that mean that when he touches your leg, you turn around and stab him in the eye with your pen? No. It means that you can pull away. It means that you can try to get away. Maybe it means that you can push him away or her away. I wouldn't think that it reaches the level where you can hit them like with a closed fist and knuckles trying to knock them out or otherwise do damage. The amount of force you're allowed to use doesn't go to 0 to 60 or straight to 100% to deadly force or something. You still have to use the reasonable amount of force. So if they're just patting you down, even if they grope your breast or grope your crotch, the reasonable force is pulling away, pushing them away, maybe getting angry and letting them know that that's not appropriate, which you should have been doing before they did any of that, if you knew that they were going to do that. But you shouldn't be escalating. So no stabbing, no killing, no maiming. I know some people feel like it's a huge violation of their rights and therefore it should encounter some kind of huge resistance, but you're not allowed to escalate the resistance. You are only allowed to match with reasonable force what you need reasonably to get out of the situation. And this also might change a little bit depending upon the school setting that you're in. Like you saw, if your principal tries to do this, that is different. If the school administration does this, it's different than if a law enforcement officer does it in the state of Georgia. So I can't really give you advice to resist an officer. So I will stop short of that, and I will say that an unreasonable search and seizure, or otherwise a search and seizure or arrest that is unlawful, that you are sure is unlawful. I guess that's the other part of it. How can you be so sure? If you are wrong, now you've assaulted an officer back. Like, he didn't assault you and you assaulted him. So now you're not only in trouble for whatever the thing was originally, now you're in trouble for assaulting an officer. So that's another reason why you don't want to resist at all, let alone resist with reasonable force, because you could be wrong too. So only if you're absolutely sure, only if you know that the chips are going to fall that way, the judge is going to agree. And like I said, you can beat the time, but you might not beat the ride. You might have a big, long court battle, and you might have to appeal to the middle appeal court, to the high appeal court in Georgia. Then you might have to appeal to the appeals court at the federal level, and then the Supreme Court at the highest level of the federal level, to figure out whether you were allowed to resist. So let's not do that, and let's instead just inform the officers that you do not consent and that you will be prosecuting your rights to the fullest extent of the law, and then cooperate. You can continue to make it known that you do not consent, but I would cooperate. And if you really, really want to know for sure, then you need to hire your own attorney in your state, in your area, preferably. Someone who works with or against the police and knows what the policies and procedures are in your area. Next question.
I would like to announce that we are top 4 on talk shows on Twitch right now.
Holy mackerel. That's cool.
Yeah. We are actually beating one of the PAX streams, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. Also, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't steal anybody from your streams. You're still doing PAX today. I forgot.
But it's okay. The main stream is still killing us, so it's fine. From Metis, if the officers had found any illegal substances during that illegal search, would they be permissible as evidence in court?
Possibly not. There is something called the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. Basically, like you said, any evidence that's produced as an incident to an unlawful search can be thrown out. And we have lots of Supreme Court cases that go up to tailor this. It's very complicated. Recently, the Supreme Court decided that if you already had an arrest warrant and they didn't know about the arrest warrant, and they come up to you and they search you, and they find all sorts of stuff on you, and then they find out that you had an arrest warrant, they can keep all the stuff that they found. So we recently had a Supreme Court case about that. It's very, very complicated, but no, in this case, the officers, if they had found drugs on anybody but the 3 that may have been identified, because we don't know anything about those 3 yet, or at least wasn't discussed in what we read, that those 3 students, the sheriff had some reason to believe that they may have had drugs on them. We don't know what that is. If they had probable cause for those 3 students, then anything they found on those 3 students could be used in court. There will still be some kind of challenge, and it might be thrown out, but that's much more likely. The students who were not under suspicion, and that suspicion hadn't been established as reasonable, and they didn't have probable cause, then anything found as an incident from those unlawful searches and seizures would be thrown out, almost guaranteed. Yes. Next question.
Jay asks, what happens when a court case that's often cited gets overturned? Does this create a cascading effect of reviewing cases?
It can, depending upon what was overturned and why. Yes, and usually the court case, the judge will understand what they're overturning and will give instructions as to what should be done with previous cases. They'll say things like, while we don't review, we stop short of reviewing cases, filed previously, whatever. From here on out, we recognize this new right, something like that. So, for example, the marriage cases of 2014, 15, etc. It was around that time for me here in Pennsylvania when marriage was made available to everyone, including members of the LGBT community. That was not something where a court declared that retroactively anybody who had been denied a marriage license was had a claim for some civil rights violation. No, they made it legal from there on out, and so now you can get a marriage license if you are a homosexual person, and you can get married. That whole situation, I think, was complicated and unfortunate, but there's an example of where it was not made retroactive in any way, and there was no remuneration or accommodation for what had been happening in the past. Instead, it was something that was only applied to the future. Next question.
Steven Seagal says, are you still following the Bill Murray, I think he means Bob Murray, Energy versus John Oliver case?
I did. I looked that one up yesterday, and there is nothing yet. It is still stuck in West Virginia State Court, and I imagine the parties are in some kind of either talks or discovery or something. I have it in my alert system here. I should find out when something happens to it, and we'll definitely talk about both Bill Murray and Bob Murray again in the future. We're keeping an eye on that case.
Question from Tactical Bra. If a police officer is following orders in the line of duty, do they have any legal protections against criminal charges?
Yes and no. A police officer is supposed to know certain things. They can't just blindly follow authority. But if they are acting within their training, clearly established policy and procedure is the quote. If they are acting within their clearly established policy and procedure, then they have qualified immunity. The qualified part means that that you have to meet the qualification of being within clearly established policy and procedure. If you are within that, then you have immunity from prosecution for your official actions that you took within that immunity, within that qualification. So yes, a police officer acting within his training and within his orders and all that, all of it together, which does mean that he could be ordered to shoot somebody and he would have to know, I'm not allowed to shoot that person. Or in this case, I'm not allowed to search that person. So he would be immune. That might be something that happens here, or maybe part of the court case or something will be that those claims are settled. But yes, now that a jury has concluded that the sheriff was acting ultra vires or outside of his authority, yes, I would expect that someone could explore trying to breach the officer's qualified immunity, because, like you saw in the case, they should have known better than to search students outright without any probable cause or reasonable suspicion. Next.
Thanks to Scudley for subscribing. Also, Flying Gecko _stream. And thank you to KateBots for cheering 100 bits with the message, hi.
Hi, Kate. Kate is some kind of troll. I don't know. She's good. She's good at trolling. Or they. We don't know. I've been corrected several times that Kate wants to be referred to as they.
Very, very fair. Noble asks,
I assume that a female-sounding name is a female-sounding name, and that's my problem. We don't assume genders on the internet, right?
Right.
In fact, you really shouldn't even assume genders in person a lot of times these days, but...
Right.
I can't not acknowledge that there are still a lot of people who conform to gender norms, so it's a bit of both worlds we have to accommodate, and that's fine.
Indeed. Question from Noble. Is it actually possible for the FCC to regulate loot boxes, or is that just a pipe dream?
FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, does not regulate video games. I don't think so.
Do they not?
I don't think that they regulate them. So you have the ESRB, which isn't even a governmental entity, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
And it's more of a voluntary thing that the gaming companies have acquiesced to, and there are other standards that have been acquiesced to kind of prevent further regulation. But someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I am not the video game attorney, but my understanding is that video games are not regulated by the FCC. Yes, this is more appropriate. It's probably regulated by the FTC. And yes, the gaming commissions of the various states and the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Protection Association or whatever, various governmental entities would have authority over whatever your whatever video game or whatever you're talking about. So if you went and made a violation would have to be kind of particular, because there's a lot you're allowed to make into video games. The FCC is more so the broadcast airwaves, regulation of the airwaves. Yes, they have been assigned with regulating the communications of that is the internet, but not its content, as far as I know. Oh yeah, we're also going to be doing a huge net neutrality push starting this week. So I hope I don't annoy anyone, but please jump on board and share all the net neutrality stuff that we're about to start doing, because it needs to be done. If you are an American citizen, we're going to be sharing the link to Better. What's the one? Better something the net. Brandon, do we know what the
Sorry?
Battle for the Net. Battleforthenet.com. This is the link. I'm going to post it in chat here, and I guess
sorry,
you're up on the.
You're breaking up for me on Discord. I actually didn't even hear half of that.
Breaking up? Oh no. Hopefully it's just you. So this is the Battle for the Net website. It seems like the FCC is going to hold some kind of rulemaking vote on the day before Thanksgiving or something like that. The chairman isn't going to announce it until very late or something. So this is the website where you go and make phone calls to your congressman and others to tell them how much you appreciate net neutrality. Remember that net neutrality is our ability to use the internet free of fast lanes for people who pay more. And I don't mean fast lanes like you can't pay for a faster connection. I mean like if you want to use NBC and Fox, you can pay $49.99, but if you want access to YouTube, you're going to have to pay $59.99. And if you use more than 5 streaming services, you're going to have to pay $79.99. That's what we're trying to prevent, that and the ISPs from getting picky-choosy with which internet traffic they like. For example, what if they decide that they like Skype and they don't like Discord? And so they turn off Discord, and literally, like, your Discord packets don't get through because they get a kickback from Microsoft and Discord did not pay a kickback. That sounds awfully unethical to me, and not a good use of all of this infrastructure, which is public infrastructure. Certainly Comcast owns their own lines from the end user to their connection to the internet, to Comcast's backbone connection to the internet, but they don't own the rest of it, yet you're allowing one company to dictate what should be done. At the very, very least, it's some kind of unfair trade practice or anti-competition, something or other. So we're going to make a huge push for getting people to call their congressmen and such. So thank you very much for all of your support there. I have one last announcement, and then that's the end of the stream. Is there anything else you'd like to go over, Brandon, before I get finished here?
Just the 100-bit cheer by Snej. Other than that, I don't have anything else for you.
All right. Well, maybe we'll put some dog video up on the screen here. What do we think? Let me we'll find another dog video. That's not it. Why is the VLC video showing up as a window capture? That's weird. It's not a window capture. It's a media file. Oh, I have no idea how to fix that. Because VLC is not running. It's not a window capture. Oh well. Well, screw that. This is the dog video that we get, people. Sorry. So my final announcement then is just to say thank you to everyone. The system, this whole thing, you and me here, YouTube or Twitch or whatever, the whole thing, Patreon, all seems to be working. It seems to be sustainable. What was it, back in February of this year, I was just going to start pushing and see how far this could go. There's now about 85,000 of you subscribed. There's 600 here on the Twitch stream. You contribute money to help keep this going. I asked for help buying a lens for the new camera. You guys bought it for me right away. Like literally within the hour, you donated $380 towards a $400 lens. Now YouTube takes some of that and Patreon takes some of that. It's fine, or whatever. But I put in the other part and we got the lens. It's being used today and it's great. And I love you guys for it. Actually, this is just, I'm floored. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm so humbled and grateful to have such a wonderful community supporting this kind of effort. So from here, I'm going to continue to slowly grow. I don't want to make huge changes. I'm not going to sell out to some third party or something and suddenly have everything be different or anything like that. What may happen is I am going to be exploring how this can become an official organization that has books and insurance and a tax accountant and can help me figure out how to pay off my student loans, because that's my personal journey in this life, is going to be figuring out how to pay for the education that led to all of this. And I think I have it figured out. And we're going to go over that in a future stream, because I think some of the information that I've discovered can really help others who are in a similar student loan situation. Basically, the short version is that I'm doing a great public service here, right? And you guys are helping me make this great public service. Well, that sort of thing qualifies for student loan forgiveness. So I'm trying to figure out what I need to do to make it official. So everything's working. We're going to continue to slowly grow. Please bear with my production quality. I am trying to continuously increase the production quality while also always trying to find usable, effective shortcuts for workflow. I've had some complaints this past week that some of the videos were a little choppy, a little bit max headroomy, the cuts were a little bit too quick. So I'm going to adjust and go from there. The reason for using such software that makes those cuts is because it does it instantly or in a few minutes, whereas it takes me hours to do it sometimes. And now, instead of wasting hours, well, not wasting, but spending hours making individual cuts, I'll have it mark the cuts for me, and then I'll make them just a little bit less aggressive. How about that? We'll see how that goes, and if we're still having problems, please let me know, because I'll go back to the old way if that's the way that produces the highest quality videos. The quality is what's important, but I'm also trying to figure out how to bring you all these stories in a timely fashion. So I'm also going to play with the formats on Twitch versus YouTube. I may release the live stuff, the live stream stuff on Sunday to Twitch from now on. This seems to have gone very well. And then I may release edited content to YouTube. We may still have live shows on YouTube, especially for the spontaneous stuff, like the Manafort and Gates indictment and the Papadopoulos plea. That stuff may still be done live on YouTube instead of Twitch. I'm not sure, especially considering that my 85,000 subscribers are mostly on YouTube right now. Although we'll see what happens here. I think it's $4.99. I don't know how the subs work here. I don't know if there's a free sub level or what on Twitch. Brandon, how does that work? Do we know?
So we do have 3 sub levels available: $4.99, $9.99, and $24.99, I think.
And those are the normal Twitch ones.
Yes.
So what do people do if they want to do like a YouTube type of subscribe on Twitch? Is there like is it the follow button, or is it like a heart or something?
Yes, you click the follow button. I'm going to talk with Leonard after the show to get subscribers on Twitch synced up with Discord, and you guys will get access to the patrons channel. So I figured out how to do that. So
yeah. So subscribers on Twitch will be recognized as patrons, as supporters, and on my Discord channel, you get your own channel to discuss just with other patrons, and you get your own voice channel as well. And I occasionally pop in to talk to just the patrons. And of course, you can tag me with questions and things in there as well. Although, as I recently found, I have to remember to turn off my tags when I go to bed at night. I get woken up in the middle of the night by some of you in Denmark. You know who you are. All right, so that's what I have for you today. That was pretty cool. How did we think that went, Brandon?
Very well. I am. This went today.
You are having a couple things, a couple glitches with your stream. Someone just cheered 100 and asked if I would be streaming PUBG, and yes.
Yes.
Kate, I will be streaming PUBG. I wanted to stream PUBG last night, but I was in a bad mood, and I decided that you didn't want to see me in a bad mood.
Did you go for the jazz?
I didn't want you to see
the jazz thing.
I downloaded Assassin's Creed Origins and played that, and it actually worked. It put me in a better mood. I'm amazed. An Ubisoft. I hate this. Oh my god. I'm saying good things about an Ubisoft game live. I hate Ubisoft because of so many games that they've screwed up over the years, but so far this is really cool. Like, I've got solid 60 frames. The gameplay seems fluid. The cutscenes are minimally invasive. Like you walk into the room and like it doesn't cut. It literally starts talking to the guy but locks you in place and then like just releases you when it's done. It's much more GTA-esque, I guess, in that sense. Uh-oh. Happened to my... I've lost my video preview. Did I lose my... Okay, no, you're good. Okay, sorry. My my monitor just locked up over here and I wasn't sure whether that meant that I had lost you or not. Babular, $24.99 sub. Holy mackerel. Wow, we'll have to figure out what bennies we give to people who sub at the higher levels.
Yeah, so we'll get some emotes made and stuff like that so that they have emotes that they can use.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll definitely figure out some benefits for you guys who are subscribing at the higher level. This is the first time I've done this, and I honestly didn't even think that far ahead. I think we probably have a few things missing that we would normally have on here.
I have a notepad of stuff.
Not the least of which is the browser source overlay. There we go, which should be on the dog stream. All right, so we'll try this again. I think this went well enough that I will host this again on Twitch. Let's just say from here on out it will be hosted on Twitch on Sundays, and we'll make a big announcement about it. I'll probably do another 5-minute live stream on YouTube to let people know that we're on Twitch. I'll probably do that for the next Sunday, and we'll see what happens from there. You can definitely give Shroot bucks. You can contact me at Dunder Mifflin's offices. I have a mailbox there. Okay, so yeah, how does this work? I guess, do I have to take the stream down and then back up for PUBG, or do I just change the stream information and keep going?
Yeah, take it down, change the title in game and community, and then put it back up, I think.
Okay, then I will do that, and I guess that means I should start my Steam and PUBG.
Can we have like a few minutes of downtime so
I'm going to bring the stream back up real quick. I can kill the desktop audio so you can talk to me.
Sure.
I would like to keep my 500 people who are still here, as many of them want to stick around. I'd like to keep them here.
Yeah,
by not
of course.
walking away for an undisclosed period of time.
Yeah.
All right, so
first of all,
30 seconds. I'm going to take down the stream and then update it, and I'll be right back. Thank you all for joining me. Oh yeah, that's right. I have to do my outro. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. And I'll see you in my next video. Oh, and have a happy Thanksgiving, Americans. I'll make another, there's going to be a Thanksgiving video. But anyway, love you all.